Hey everyone, I'm Jake Tonkel, 2020 candidate for San Jose City Council here in District 6, and I'm joined by Alex Lee. Hello, Alex. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. My name is Alex Lee. I'm the Democratic Assembly candidate for District 25, which is in northern San Jose, Santa Clara, and into Alameda County, so just neighboring District 6.
And we wanted to plug in, it's very rare in politics these days that we actually have corporate-free candidates with such success. My campaign and Alex's campaign, both in very similar areas of the Bay, pardon me, running on this corporate-free platform. So we thought it'd be fun to just talk to each other and open up for questions at the end about what it's like, what are some of the struggles, what are some of the rewards that come with being corporate-free as well. And yeah, excited to join them in conversation. So thank you for coming.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for inviting me. This is a big issue that I think we're both mutually passionate about. So I'm corporate free, don't take any business money at all, especially in a state race. It's, there's a lot of money influencing this, our kind of races, especially city council as well. But just so the viewers know, I won the primary race with 7 other Democrats running against me, and we were outspent 15-1. Frankly, we didn't have as much cash coming in because we didn't take that special interest money. But now, we secured that Democratic nomination, and we're paving a way, I think, locally in San Jose and of course in the state, that candidates can be successful being corporate free.
It's super exciting. Our race, we were outspent 4-1. And I think what both of us really had in common was the understanding that going to the door and talking to residents one-on-one was the best way to outreach, as well as the way to get some of that weight off your shoulders, not having to spend time fundraising, but actually get to talk to people. How many doors did you guys knock on in your campaign,
Alex? We knocked on probably like 30,000 doors at the end of it. So it's a lot. And hey, sometimes, I don't know if this happened for you, but sometimes some people donate at the door too. Some really nice older folks who just say, hey, you want some money? I'm like, sure, if you want to donate.
Yeah, it's weird. It ranges too. Some people would sit down and write a check. Other people are just like, oh, I'll donate $5 online right now. Happened a couple of times, and it's just really cool experience to have because you're making a connection with somebody.
Yeah. Isn't that so like organically validating though when that happens, when they really like you enough and they're like, let me just pull some money out of my wallet right now.
Yeah. It makes it super worthwhile. It really does. And I mean, as we're looking at how politics is shaped nationally and locally, there's just so much money in it. And I think on a federal level, everybody's fairly aware. They know what lobbyists do. Hopefully people understand that most of your congressional representatives' time is spent calling and trying to raise money for their next election cycle. It's certainly something you're going to have to deal with sooner than I will. Right, the state assembly is only 2-year cycles, so
just like the House of Reps. Yes.
Yeah, it's really in that space definitely a game of your election just continues through your whole career, and that's something that I think diminishes the ability to get good work done.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so same thing in Congress as in the state house. Really is. There's a lot of people who worry about their reelection, right? If they aren't doing, in my opinion, if they aren't doing the hard grassroots kind of work like we are trying to do, it makes it more and more tenuous, right? So if you are dependent on 4 or 5 really wealthy donors in the business sector, especially, then you really want to cultivate those relationships, right? You want to make sure that those votes are appeasing to them. You're spending the time cozying up to them. But our kind of grassroots approach, where it's the law of large numbers, right? If you spend quality time with a lot of folks in our district, then you have them in mind first. So, it's not just a political ethics, it's also, I think, a political efficacy point. And I feel like, we have that shared philosophy in it.
Yeah, I mean, fingers crossed, we're going to both win our respective races and be able to put that into practice for kind of one of the rare first-time opportunities here. But it is kind of a strange spot to be in when you're looking at traditional politics and people asking, how much money have you raised? How much do you think you can raise? How many hours are you spending on the phone every day to call people and ask for money? When has nothing to do with how effective you would be at the job and what part of the community you're representing.
No, and I hate that. It's just this weird metric that people in politics have, I think, across the spectrum who are in politics right now have really adopted, right? They say money is a key to everything. Well, I don't really think so. And I'm going to be giving more talks in the future to prospective candidates and stuff about like, money only gets you so far, right? It's the hard work and hustle you have in it. But I'm curious, Jake, if you do, and hopefully when you do get elected to city council, what kind of clean money measures are you hoping to enact at City Hall?
So I'm super excited about how publicly funded elections have taken off. Starting right now, even before my election into office, there's the San Jose Fair Elections Initiative, which may or may not be put on the ballot in November.
I think it probably will.
Hopefully it will. For those that haven't heard of it, it's going to bar people from donating to political candidates in the city of San Jose specifically that get contracts over a certain size from the city. Right? This is mostly developer type spaces where they're going out, they're taking on city projects and getting the return for their investment that was that campaign donation in some senses. It's an exciting initiative. It has, like, I think above 70% support when polled in the city of San Jose. So it's another piece of this where people, the majority of people, understand money in politics is a problem, and then we have to start taking legislative and policy-based steps to fix it. But the chicken and the egg scenario, if you're elected because you raised the most money, why would you start to handcuff yourself in this space? So it's really interesting to see how that might play out, because there's still a battle going on at City Hall. Like, they could have put it on the ballot without having to collect hundreds of thousands of signatures, which cost money in itself to get. You have to have people that can take time off from work and go gather signatures, talk to neighbors. Process is a little bit I guess, rigged against moving forward in a positive direction. But we've also got plenty of cities that are looking at and experimenting with publicly funded campaign structures. There's a voucher systems where each resident would have a set amount of money that they could only donate to a candidate of their choice. And I think that's something super exciting. For my campaign, we had over 450 donors, individual people that donated to the campaign, where we were outspent 4-1 by someone who had 100 less donors than we did. Very significant difference in how much money was being put forth and what type of people are being represented, what industries are being represented as well. And if you can switch to something like a voucher system, you give everyday working class people the opportunity to give a little bit of push that they might not necessarily be able to. Yeah. How about you? What kind of things are you looking at as well?
Well, I'm really glad about that. I think, my home city of San Jose, hopefully we will pass the Fair Elections Initiative, but I'm hoping to build upon that at the state level. The first bill I actually want to introduce at the state assembly on swearing in day, in fact, will be to ban corporate contributions to all state candidates and hopefully ballot measures as well. So, here's a fun fact. In San Jose, I think there's some really good rules already in place, right? There's a contribution limit per individual of $600. $600, it's pretty reasonable.
What's your limit?
At the state level, at the state level per individual, it is $4,700. It is, can't do the math quickly, but it's a lot more, right? It's $4,100, it's $4,000 more. And that puts a lot of outsized influence, right? It's hard enough for someone in the working class to summon up $600, however much they love you, to summon up $600 to give you that money, right? But now when you're competing at this level where a corporation can donate the account of $4,000 versus someone who probably can muster you $47, right? It really changes the playing field. And this is a uniform standard across the state, right? And city to city, right? It's not always the same. Milpitas, just north of San Jose, is $250 per person, but there's cities like Hayward that's $1,400 per city council candidate per individual.
Yeah.
So it's not uniform, right? So what I really want to do is make sure that we're empowering everyday people in our society, not just corporations, right? Where they can summon all this money from their business accounts, whether they be a big tech company or a big financial, firm of some sort, and they just dump money into candidates, because that is really what they can do. Now, obviously, we live in the age of Citizens United, and until the federal scene changes, we can't overturn super PACs and all this dark money that's out there, which is the worst part of it. But
Yeah.
I think it's a common sense measure to right now just say, like, look, I'm old fashioned in a way, right? It should be one person, one vote, but also a person donates to the person they support, not a business entity of some sort saying, well, this person's going to help us, meet our profits a lot better, or, help us be more profitable. So I'm going to be really interested in passing or introducing that bill and hopefully passing, because I think there's a lot more momentum right now for corporate free candidates, for corporate free democracy. But we'll see. I think it's going to be an uphill battle, right? Like you said, there's some people who benefit very much from the system who probably wouldn't like to switch to begging their constituents for $47, though that is our model, right? Where we said, if you think I'm doing a good job, just chip in $47, $27, whatever have you. And, it's always a pitch, right? That June 30th is our fundraising deadline for both of us. So if you want to contribute $27 to either Jake Tonkel or myself, it's always helpful. I think it's more meaningful sometimes than the max checks from a faceless corporate entity, which I don't take. So thank you for asking.
Neither of us do. So it's actually a really humbling experience just to have someone I don't know donate to the campaign, which happens through social media, a couple times a week. It really means a lot knowing that we're out there trying to put a vision forward for the city of San Jose. You for representing the area at the, in Sacramento, to know that people all over the place are willing to just chip in a little bit of money to make that happen, because it makes a huge difference. I mean, there are diminishing returns, fortunately, to raising so much in some regard. Only send so much mail, and before you start to bug people, which is another interesting policy point. There's something that I think needs to be considered at all levels of government is, how does the existing structure make it so that candidates get visibility? City of San Jose has closed circuit television. You can go to City Hall and they record stuff and put it out, but we don't have City of San Jose sponsored debates for candidates to make sure that everybody's there. You could, just like, you pay, for me, it was $3,000 to get my statement in the ballot book.
It's $3,000 just for the city of San Jose?
To get
mine was $7,000.
The voter guide, right?
For 5 cities. Mine was 7.
Yeah.
That's a lot. It's crazy.
It's a lot of money. And for some candidates, that's all they raise, is getting in the voter guide, which certainly hurts people that have backgrounds that maybe they're not connected to folks with lots of money. Maybe they can't fund themselves. And so one of the other things that I think is really cool about public financing, going to publicly funded elections, is the ability to encourage a higher diversity of candidates, people from different backgrounds.
Absolutely. And you know what's? I'm sorry. Go on.
I was just going to say, we can't all be lawyers,
No, go for it. Finish that thought, because my AirPods are dying suddenly, so I need to switch my sound output.
I was just saying, we can't all be lawyers. I mean, that's what people aspire to shift from politics over. And while we need good legal advice in politics, I think something especially that came out of the 2016 election cycle was, where are the nurses, where are the teachers, where are the engineers, where are the scientists? As we really start to realize it's those folks that understand how the world works that should be represented as well.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say before my headphones died, I think you're at such a poignant point right now, because the barriers to running, right, is the ballot statement, getting on the ballot, all those things. Those things are expensive, right? And you need to raise thousands of dollars, which are out of reach for a lot of working class people, I think. And that's something obviously we need to reform on in and of itself, those barriers to getting on there. But even within the political system that I'm sure you and I have experienced is political money and fundraising is kind of like a status symbol too. It's like the more money you raise, no matter how you spend it, right? No matter how, like, people are just like, oh, you have $500,000, you're going to win, right? Even if I had $500,000 and I spent it all on like balloons, right? It's completely absurdist, right? But, people don't quite look at what you spend the money on. It's just it's almost like this class system that is ingrained into our politics, right? The wealthier you are, the more looked upon you are. And I think we have to really do a lot to reverse that trend, and I think it's about changing the, it's my cat playing around, of the, how we perceive politics and making sure there's more public perception, like public debates or things like that. Because a lot of people, I think, do look at the voter guide as a real good resource. And we don't really have a lot of kind of relatively unbiased kind of feeling sources, right? Other than that. So we need to change that.
Yeah. And I mean, the momentum you can build. Pardon me, the first question so many endorsement interviews ask is, how much money have you raised and how much do you plan to raise?
I plan to raise a lot of money. I don't know how much. That's what I always say.
Yeah. But it is challenging where we have organizations, people that take a look at a person's values and say, hey, I would support that person. I think they'd be a qualified candidate. And then the second thing they take a look at is how much money you have and go, oh, never mind, that person can't win. And it's a struggle. I mean, it's something that needs to be fixed.
Absolutely. And we start one hand at a time, one victory at a time. And I think it turns heads when we say we're corporate free and these are our principles and we stick to our guns. And I think it's going to change it one by one.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It's going to be a cool experience as well, because you get to go up and on election day when election night, things come in our way, really show people that it's how hard you work, the community you want to represent, and not just money, which is so awesome, even to get where we're both at, just on that alone is, I think, very eye-opening for a lot of people. Is why I wanted to bring you on and have the conversation about it. So it's been cool.
Well, it'll be certainly interesting learning curve, because I don't know at this point, I don't want to say I will be the first, but I just genuinely don't know if there are any other state legislators that take this kind of serious clean money pledge about saying no to all business money. So it'll be definitely learning not learning curve, but lessons for everyone else, right? Because I'm up every 2 years and hopefully you will be up only every 4 years. So I have to constantly figure out how to keep the grassroots way of funding campaigns alive, right? Because, I don't anticipate that if I do my job well, I anticipate that at some point, some businesses and all these entities will start throwing money to unseat me at some point. And it will be very interesting to see how that plays out within the larger scope of politics, right? Because I think when you win and when I win, hopefully it'll inspire more people to say it's possible, right? Because it's too often, like when you answer those questionnaires, right? People are like, well, how are you going to get this money? And then the logical step is like, well, then I should say no. I should not say no to any money, right? But if we can take that principle stance and just say clean money for everyone, then we can do it. Then, hopefully we change the system. But another thing is hopefully we pass the law to prohibit corporate contributions altogether, and that evens the playing field, that forces everyone's hands, because I would love to have that. Let's all play by the same playing field, right? Whether you're an incumbent of 40 years or one term in city council or in the state legislature, the new rule is you got to take money from people. That's it, and let's see how popular you really were.
Yeah, and it's something that I throw around with residents. I mean, the best time for me to test out policy ideas that get good feedback from people is at the door, which is why I miss knocking on doors right now. It would be really nice. And the other way to throw it around is, if you want to see which elected official can take care of your money, protect your tax dollars, and use them wisely, find that out in the election. Everybody have a similar amount of money, and whoever uses it the best and has the strongest message, hopefully comes out on top. And so there's lots of fun ways that I think we should have been, love to say hindsight, experimenting with this over the last couple of decades to really figure out what works. Unfortunately, we went in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting experience. The other thing I wanted to bump into, you mentioned independent expenditures. You want to explain what that is for people that might not know the difference between a candidate taking money and an IE?
Yeah, an independent expenditure is exactly that, right? It is a committee or some entity that is independently spending money on behalf or sometimes against a candidate, right? So these could be a bunch of corporations in the Silicon Valley. They form something and they say, look, we don't like this one person, so we're going to spend all this money and we're going to run ads and do all that stuff, right? Under a lot of different rules, they actually have an easier time, I would say, of spending and raising money than candidates do specifically. And that's due to a lot, in part, to Citizens United, which is a pivotal Supreme Court case, which basically said corporations are people too, so they should not have limited speech, right? Which is insane. But that's the law of the land, and that's why we have super PACs and IE and dark money and all that stuff. So unfortunately, here's the thing, and that's what I rationalize about the Fair Elections Initiative. And when people in business groups ask me why I support it, I'm like, in the end of the day, you can give your $600 to your favorite corporate candidates, and you can still form these independent expenditures and still spend, right? So, this is us banning corporate money is a big step in the right direction, but it won't solve everything until we win at the federal level too.
Yeah. Did you have a lot of independent expenditures in your race?
Oh, not for me, but I think we had a couple. We had charter schools spend money in my race. I think we had some insurance agents and some attorneys group. They spent money. I had a very crowded primary, as you can imagine. So they spent in support and against. It was quite jarring. The way I actually found out the charter schools were spending money was that I was in Fremont after a day of knocking, and I was like in a store or something trying to get food, I think. And I looked up at the TV, and there was this ad playing, and it said sponsored by California Charter Schools. I was like, what? It's very strange.
Yeah. Interesting. I know in our race we had only supports, which is, in my opinion, a nicer way to do it. If you're going to spend all this money and do whatever you want to do, at least talk about the candidate you want to support. But even then, the mail versus TV, like there's the disclose acts that come through, Sacramento every year, talk about how big the, font needs to be to say paid for by, etc. It's a challenge for most people to really take the time to recognize that. In San Jose, real estate and developer lobbies and California Realtors Association spent a bunch of money in all the city council races. That has a big impact, especially when people think that's coming from the candidate, right?
They're clever about it, right? The way they design things and stuff. So, in my area, I have a contentious San Jose City Council race too, and I think we accumulated probably a book of mailers with all the independent expenditure money coming in. I hope it won't be the case for D6 voters because, frankly, part of me thinks it's just insulting to voters. Like they can't do their own research; they have to get these things shoved at them. So that's why we're very strategic about our mail strategy over here.
Yeah, we're doing the same, and it's expensive. I mean, there's 36,000 houses in District 6, and if it costs you, say $1 to mail them once, it's a little less than $1. That's $36,000 just to give people one piece of paper about you.
Yeah, isn't that great use of money from all these industries constantly just funneling thousands and thousands of dollars into recycling paper?
Oh yeah.
So I'm hoping once we pass, the Fair Election Initiative and banning corporate money, my thing is to say, we're in a recession. This is my way of saving you money. You can now pay your workers and employees better, so you don't have to spend it on this stuff. That's my hope.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if the return on investment from keeping good employees on, from making sure that they're well taken care of and productive was better than putting money into politicians' pockets, then we should be making that a reality for people. It's really unfortunate that instead it's a way better investment to go lobby than it is to pay people well or expand your product, whatever you want to do, that's your business. But
lobbying is another live stream topic one day we can rant about. But
yeah, certainly. With that, I'll look in the chat real quick, see if we have a couple of questions, and then we'll call it. I actually have a work call that is probably going to start without me here in a minute or two.
Too busy of a candidate.
First question was just studies have shown, this might be more of a statement, but we'll read it anyway. Cities where the mayor is on the same ballot as the president, the voter turnout is more than doubled, where cities have mayoral elections in the off cycle. San Jose specifically, for everybody listening, mayor's election is on the off cycle. Voter turnout's lower, so less of the city has a say in who's represented. That's part of this Fair Elections Initiative too. So it was make sure that entities that get contracts from the city can no longer donate to political candidates, and to shift the mayoral election so that it's in line with presidential years. We have a couple of people saying great job. Thanks, Alex. Thanks, Neil. And then I think that's it. Mustafa asks, can you talk about roadblocks towards public banking? And I will have to bring that up on a different chat as it's time for us to bounce out here. But Alex, thank you very much for jumping on with me, and looking forward to doing this again.
Well, thank you so much. I'm proud to support you, another great corporate free candidate, and I'm looking forward to the progressive awesomeness you're going to do on the San Jose City Council.
Looking forward to working with you. All right. Take care.